try to take you on a journey for the next 15 minutes, one that I've been on for actually over 35 years. So I started when I was 3. I have been in this world of what I call the eco-renaissance. I love being in Austin right now because back in 2005, I actually launched the first textile initiative in Whole Foods Market, which really was about connecting the dots from food to beauty to fashion and lifestyle and all across the board. All of these dots are connected. I actually started my career in 1990. I co-founded a school known as the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Today there's almost 200,000 certified health coaches. And people back then thought I was kind of crazy, right? And it was very much an alternative movement. And today, as we just heard from preventive neurology, that this is about now, getting ahead of this. It's not even about staying ahead anymore. It's about not being left behind and understanding how to embrace this kind of lifestyle. So I wrote a book that was really inspired by the fact that in the original Renaissance, it was a time of dark ages. And if all of you are not asleep right now, you know very well that we're living in sort of a modern day Star Wars, right? We've got this dark and the light forces that are at odds. Well, climate crisis, it's not even climate change anymore, it's a climate crisis. And we all have to be part of this equation. One of my favorite quotes, which was on the last slide, is from Albert Einstein, right? We can't solve today's problems with the same consciousness that created them, right? So we have to elevate our consciousness and we have to climb that ladder and change our perspective. Breaks my heart today when you hear kids say they don't want to have children, right? Because they don't want to bring kids into this world. And so when we talk about detoxifying our lifestyle, it's about starting with design. And that, in my book, ecoRENAISSANCE, the premise is through the lens of design, we can change the world. If you appeal to people at that visceral level, right, aesthetically, with what they see, what they feel, they touch, they, smell, and then, oh, by the way, take them down this sort of proverbial rabbit hole of why and how and when and where, and, then it's about serving ourselves. Serving others is serving ourselves. And we're all in this together, right? So we have to co-create and redesign a new reality that's based on no compromise, right? That's based on not degeneration and pollution and degradation, but about nurturing and protecting. It's about the 5 C's, which is what I talk about in my book, what are really the fundamental principles of this entire movement. Creativity, because we're all creators. Consciousness, which I mentioned, it is really about tapping into that higher level of, that higher sixth sense, right? Connection, community, and collaboration. Because 1 + 1 = 11. Everyone who knows me knows that's my mantra, that we're stronger together than we are apart. And we have to come together to co-create, to change the way the systems that are destroying us today are there. So we can unlock the potential that we have and be really focused on, here it's really about mind, body, spirit, right? Positivity, gratitude, service, and understanding that being part of a more conscious, toxic-free lifestyle is not about sacrifice or deprivation. It's about value add, right? Which is why in 1995 I coined the term eco-fashion and filed a trademark on that term, and people looked at me like, yeah, that will never work, Marci. People who are into fashion are not into consciousness and the environment and social justice. And I'm like, well, I want both, right? So I've spent the last 25 plus years styling the world of change and changing the world of style and building this kind of new paradigm with this mantra and understanding that we're all just made of energy, right? And everything we put in, on, and around our bodies is an extension of who we are. So when we start with, being a creator and we talk about art being life, right? It's about looking at how can we build a relationship with nature, that we have a symbiotic relationship with nature. We breathe out carbon, and nature's meant to breathe it in and breathe out oxygen, which we breathe in. So check out John Hardy and Elora Hardy's TED Talks on this insane, beautiful community they built all out of bamboo. That is probably the most stunning architecture I've actually ever seen. And, why we're all here. I mean, art, music, film. I mean, this feeds our soul, right? So it's about, looking through a different lens when we, tap into the arts. And as my daughter, who created a nonprofit called Entertainment for Change, says, we can all be impact artists. And, you see a film like Don't Look Up, as a reminder that we're all in this together. And we all, how many of you eat organic food or live a more conscious lifestyle when it comes to food? So I say that's kind of the gateway to this movement, right? Whether it's regenerative, it's organic, you're keto or gluten-free. It's about having that mindfulness and having that consciousness, that understanding that the first thing that changes when we change our diet and our lifestyles is our blood. That is our life support system. It feeds us. So why do we want to put poison in our blood, right? Why do we want to, feed ourselves? It's like, let food be thy medicine, right? That's the Hippocratic oath that the entire medical system is built on, although so many doctors don't learn about food as a tool for health. They're starting to, but when I, started IIN, it was still a somewhat foreign concept. Everybody in the world who knew about organic, we all knew each other. That's how small the movement was. So it's really fun. 83% of Americans today are buying organic food, at least occasionally, and Costco is the largest distributor of organic in America, not Whole Foods. So, I'm an ambassador for an organization called the Rodale Institute, and I'll just sum up by saying, healthy soil makes healthy plants, which makes healthy people. And if you haven't seen the film Kiss the Ground or read the book, I recommend you do so. It really helps you understand the power of soil and being GMO-free and healthy soil. It's a living, breathing ecosystem. And I liken soil to the skin of the earth, right? Because the skin is the largest organ in our bodies. It's our primary organ for absorption. So it's not just what we put in our bodies. It's not just you are what you eat. You're also what you put on your bodies, which is why the beauty industry right now has gone from, my mentor of 25 years is the founder of Aveda. He passed away a few years ago. He wrote the foreword to my book, but he was such a powerful, iconic, inspiring human and took such a leap of faith in saying, we can have beautiful scent and functionality and also, be non-toxic. And so when you look at, people like Jay Shetty, who's out there talking about On Purpose and the 8 Rules of Love, or the Global Wellness Institute, or, brands like Higher Dose, or in this case, all these beauty brands that understand that the skin being this organ that we have to nurture and protect us, right? And using things like seaweed and putting, building our gut and our ecosystem. I mean, we are a living, breathing ecosystem ourselves, right? It's not just about our relationship with nature. We're a part of nature. We're not outside of it. And so when you look at your beauty products, I would just say, and you can take a screenshot, I'm not going to go through all these, I'm just going to say, these are chemicals in the products we're putting on our skin. So if you can't pronounce it, don't use it. And if you're using it, be aware of, and minimize your use. It's not about perfection, right? This is about trying to make the best choices we can every day and being on the journey where you're at least awake and aware of everything that, every choice that you're making. Parabens, they, affect our hormonal balance, right? So there is a relationship between, how they bind to, in the body that, is competing with estrogen. And so there are all these, manifestations of beauty products and thousands of chemicals that don't serve us. If you knew what they are, and I said, would you just rub these on your skin? You'd probably say no, but they're in the products that we're using. So now I'm going to really introduce you to fashion, which is really kind of where I am today. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Eco Fashion Corp. And we're meeting a lot of brands and retailers where they are to help them build these models of agriculture to popular culture, or I say source to story, because as I said with the farm to table movement, we started by going back to the source to understand where our food is coming from, because we're starting to rebuild that relationship with our food. But now it's about going back to the source and understanding where our fashion comes from, right? Because cotton is one of the most heavily sprayed industries in agriculture with the worst carcinogenic chemicals. And people, farmers have been lured in by these chemical companies that are told they're going to get better yields, and that doesn't matter how much they spray because we're not eating cotton. Well, we actually are. 60% of the cotton plant goes back into the food stream as cottonseed oil, right? So when you gin out the seeds when you harvest cotton, which cotton doesn't grow in our department store, right? People forget that it's actually part of nature, no different than the food you're eating. And so when you look at the magnitude and multitude of chemicals in cotton, and then you pull the curtain back and you look at the finishes and the dyes that go into the textiles we're wearing every day, from thousands of toxic dyes and finishes that are not regulated, right? And again, this skin, we're putting them on our bodies, we're wearing them all day long. And soil being that sort of immune system for the plants, if we can build healthy soil and we can build regenerative, organic, and even biodynamic farming methods, then we can not only build soil that's going to build healthy plants, be more resistant to bugs, and be purer on our skin, the way that cotton is actually marketed, but we're also finding a solution to climate change, because a lot of people don't know that regenerative agriculture is actually one of our #1 solutions to climate change. Because when you have healthy soil, you have an ecosystem, a living ecosystem that will sequester carbon out of the atmosphere. But when we turn soil into dirt, whether it's the food system or it's the fiber system, you basically have chemical runoff going into the waterways that we're depending on to, drink, to breathe the air, right? But you also have, systems that are broken and no longer can sequester carbon. And, here are a couple of stats that people don't know. I mean, the fashion industry is one of the leading causes of air and water pollution. It's actually second to coal. 20% of the world's freshwater pollution is coming from textile treatment and dyeing. 10% of the world's carbon footprint is coming from the fashion industry, right? So agriculture, transportation, and so the impacts, socially, the waste in the landfills, so over 5% of landfills are filled with textiles. And here's something most people don't realize. Every single synthetic garment ever produced in the history of mankind does not biodegrade, which means all those synthetics, polyester, acrylic, nylon, all those fibers that are basically plastic, when you wash them, they're going into your washing machines, they're going into the rivers, they're going into the oceans. So we're not even talking about our land ecosystems anymore, we're talking about our ocean ecosystems are getting destroyed. 35% of the plastic in the oceans is textile waste. And I'll just quickly, go through it. I have an article, an interview I did on Goop that will break down, if just Google, if you want to really understand all the chemicals that are going into the fashion system and understand the impacts of these dyes and finishes and flame retardants and, brighteners and whiteners and things that make you water resistant and stain resistant. I mean, these are all formaldehyde, heavy metals, lead, acetones, chlorine bleach, as I said. I mean, there's, an insane amount of chemicals that go into our fashion system that can compromise our health and lead to things like cancer and other degenerative illnesses and endocrine disruptors. And that's why American Airlines stewardesses actually filed a lawsuit against American several years ago, because so many of the stewardesses were reacting to the clothing that they were being given and asked to wear. And so, a third of the population today is walking around with chemical sensitivities, and 70 million people with asthma and allergies. And it's not just what we put in our bodies. You have to think about every choice you're making. And I'll just end real quickly by showing you a few more points. One is Farm to Home, which is a brand I started a few years ago on QVC, and been going on QVC the last few years to really teach people about, you spend a third of your life in bed. You're supposed to, right? I don't always, but, and, there's over 2 pounds of pesticides in a single bed sheet to make that single bed sheet. And you're, sleeping on that, and it's against your skin, and you're breathing it in through your pillowcases. So, Farm to Home is an extension of the farm to table movement, that your sheets, your towels, your robes, you could find this brand on, Kohl's.com and JCPenney.com. It's mass market, so take away that it's too expensive. It's launching next week in Costco nationwide, our Farm to Home comforters. So, it's about having those choices, but being aware that they exist out there today, because we don't inherit this land from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. That was a Native American quote that I love. And just end with, this is my mantra is yes and. This is also a brand I started, an apparel brand at yesand.style. And yes, you can have style, quality, fit, color, comfort, hand, price, everything you want, and have a way to make a difference to human and environmental wellness, farmer and worker welfare, and future generations. Organic is not about sacrifice. It's good for people, it's good for planet, it's good for business. And so, as an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, it's about the 5 Ps: people, planet, profit, passion, and purpose. It's no compromise. I always say I'm like a little kid in a candy store as an entrepreneur. I get to do what I love, make a living, and change the world and be a part of helping people understand, by teaching by example and inspiring and educating and activating, because we all are in this together, and we have to vote with our dollars and recognize, B Corps. It's a giant community today of over 4,000 B Corps in over 77 countries and I think 153 different industries around the world. This is a community of people looking at, not doing less bad, but doing more good, so that we can have, more accessibility and affordability in the choices that we're making. So think about the brands, the companies, the products you're supporting, not just for yourself, but for all of us. And these are what I call my Illuminartists in my book. These are 40 people who are also leveraging their platforms to transform the world. They're my modern day Michelangelos of this movement. And they're all part of this, spokes in the wheel of change: food, fiber, and beauty, and fashion, and business, and art, and wellness. It's all connected. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. If you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. This is another, just some tips if you want to take a slide. But it's all hands on deck, personally, professionally. And I'll just say, thank you to SHE Media for having me, and Sam, and South by Southwest. And you can follow me at Marci Zaroff at Yes And remember, vision is the art of seeing things invisible, which is a Jonathan Swift quote that I love, because we have to envision and visualize the future, a new reality that is there to serve, that we can all be a part of, where we can be, live, eat, and wear the change that we wish to see. So thank you so much.